this may go way off left, field, so you can bring me
Go.
back. But I think that if we truly understood what was happening here in this experience, this human
Mhm.
experience, that we're all individual souls that have chosen in to grow and to experience something,
Hmm.
and that everybody has a right to go on their own path because everybody has a path, even your child,
Hmm. Hmm.
that to give them the space to be able to explore, oh, men should wear dresses. That pink is not, that's a girl's color. Bitch, do your history. Because pink was only worn by men. Men actually wore dresses and wore high heels. They were invented for men first. Women weren't allowed to wear pink because it was too costly. So men got to wear it.
Mm.
This all of these beliefs that we have been told for centuries are bullshit. But you got to figure that out yourself. And I think that that's, to me, radical. When you start to question, what are my beliefs and why are they there? Whether you are far on the right side, evangelical, to extreme on the left, understanding how those perceptions and those beliefs came about are so powerful.
Hello, beautiful people. Yes, I am talking to you. Are you ready to feel confident AF, free from the expectations and opinions of others, and create ultimate self-trust in who you are, what you say, and how you show up in every part of your life? If you answered a hell yes, I am, I guarantee this episode will empower you to be 100% yourself, 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed. It's time for you to strut your stuff, express yourself with freedom, and fully embrace every freaking fabulous part of you. Let's dive in. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome to another episode of Road to Radical Visibility. My name is Rachel Freemon Sowers, also known as the Break Free Bitch, because I am passionate about helping people in the LGBTQ plus and female communities break free from the toxic social constructs, expectations, beliefs that are holding you back from experiencing your life exactly the way that you want to. And if you've hung out here for very long, you know that my professional and my personal motto is being 100% yourself, 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed. And as you can see, I have another kick-ass guest on the show. It is going to be so good. When I first spoke to my guest, Paul, it was almost like this automatic for me, energetic connection. And it was also like, wow, this is exactly why we need to be putting this kind of content out here, exactly why I want each one of you to continue listening. So make sure to tune in to the whole entire episode today because you will not want to miss it. Okay, so I'm going to introduce my guest, Paul, to you right now. Paul is a multi-passionate queer creator and master facilitator who describes himself as a self-discovery enthusiast. Fits right in. He is keenly focused on transforming the corporate environment with a unique, intuitive leadership development that taps into the brilliance of each human being. Yes, please. His passion for growth led him to co-create ASG, a community for all queer people to connect as professionals and entrepreneurs, to truly transform and uplift our community with rich resources, membership, education, retreats, and so much more. I am so happy to welcome Paul on the show. Please help me welcome Paul. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be chatting with you today.
Well, if it's anything like our pre-chat, this audience is in for a freaking phenomenal treat. All right, so the first question I ask every guest on the show before we dive into even more goodness is, what does radical visibility mean to you?
I think what I feel radical visibility is for me is that space of really coming back to our own individual self and finally being like, what the fuck? I actually have choices and I can be myself. and I don't have to go that way or that way,
Mm-hmm.
or there's a path that I can find myself.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's the radical piece, is when we discover that within ourselves.
Mm.
And then it gets even crazier, because then you get out in normal society and they're like, who the fuck are you? And I'm like, well, I'm just being me. I know you want to be yourself too. But they're like, oh no, I can't handle this. And so it's like takes, the gumption. But to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's what was probably has been most radical in my life, is just that thought that I actually have options and I'm in
Mm-hmm.
charge fully of what I create in my world.
Well, so that's a great jumping off point, because I know that so many listeners have experienced a little bit of that. Some listeners have experienced, okay, this is me fully being the way I want to be and interacting in the world. What was one, because I'm sure you have many, what was one turning point when you were like, nope, I'm choosing to be the way I want to be right now?
Mm. It was on a trampoline under the stars in the Black Hills in South Dakota. And I was with my best friend who had just gotten engaged. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness,
Mm-hmm.
and I was exhausted at that point, with life. Hated myself, couldn't you know cope with not fitting in, and then this heavy pressure to get married. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and as they were celebrating, I went out and laid on the trampoline. I'm not sure what took me out there. I kind of, it was my intuition. I think my soul was like, you need to get outside.
Yeah.
And at that point, what I realized was the I had this question of like, you have two options here. You can
Mm-hmm.
you can deny being who you are, get married, stay the course, or you choose to be yourself and acknowledge. And it was like the first time on the trampoline, I was like, I'm gay. I mean, I knew that I was gay, right?
Yeah.
I had done shit, I've experienced, but to really internally acknowledge and be like, I am gay, and I am going to have to, I'm choosing this.
Yeah.
And I know that it's going to mean that I'm losing my family and community, and I don't care. I felt so good. In fact, the next day we were all having breakfast at a restaurant, and they all were looking at me, and they're like, "You are like glowing. Like you seem so happy. What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, you have no idea. I finally acknowledged that I like to suck dick." I mean, I didn't say that to them, but it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was really, I think, just that moment of finally, like, I've had enough. I've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. It was, to me, that was the two options, and the latter was just no way, couldn't do it.
Well, how many times do we, and I was talking to someone about this the other day, but when we're younger, it's all about, at least for me, it was all about this self-betrayal, this constant self-betrayal. And it was like
Mm-hmm.
at some point you're going to hit rock bottom one way or another, right? And I love it when people don't hit all the way rock bottom and they decide to choose themselves. And you're right, it takes gumption, it takes courage, it takes, I don't know, all of the things, right?
Yeah, it totally does. And when you somebody asks a question about the trans like issues and all the
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ rights, like we were having this conversation, and they're like, well, why does it feel like queer people are pushing an agenda? And I said, well, straight people have been pushing in their agenda for thousands of years.
Yeah.
and and I think that that's what it speaks to, is you're up against whatever belief systems,
Mm-hmm.
structures, family, who
Mm-hmm.
knows all the different pieces that each of us have gone through. But to get to a place where you hopefully don't hit rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that happens a lot in our community.
Absolutely.
And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And yet at the same time, I feel like we are so capable as in the queer community of really setting, as you said, like this radical approach. We've already taken one radical step of probably many. And that's why, you know, I love shows like this and these conversations, because, man, it's exhausting when you think about all the different programming and different conversations and the shit that you're bombarded with that you have to back away from and say, that's not me. Even how queer, even how, I don't know how you feel about this, but even how queer culture is presented to us as like, this is what it means to be queer or gay or a lesbian or transgender and non-binary. And so then it's like this other box. I'm like, I'm fucking tired of boxes. Like, no more boxes for me, please.
Well, right. And there's a couple things that you hit on in there that are just so important for us to start doing in our own lives as a part of this community and helping our community. I know you and I are both really passionate about helping our community really decide to choose themselves. And, you know, all of the things that we've done that we've not known that we've been doing to ourselves, all the things that we are taught, but then it does leak into our own culture, our own LGBTQ plus culture. And we need to help people within our culture not to discriminate against each other, not to try and tell each other how we're supposed to be living, because that still happens within the culture, right? It's like what they call it, like a micro culture of the macro, you know?
Totally. Well, and to your point, I think, like, if you look at most of queer media and the queer media outlets that are great. I am going to put my foot. I don't care. Actually, this is what I've been wanting to say.
Do it, because I'm going to agree with you.
You look at the queer media, and when you actually look at objective articles or things that we really could be very vital to us and just our overall well-being, that doesn't hit their paper. That doesn't hit their blogs. It doesn't hit their magazines. Oftentimes it's penis, pop culture, and politics, and that's the focus. And when you look at the serious things that are taking place in our community, and then you do look, it's all driven to these specific ways that you're supposed to be. And you know, so when I left a Jehovah's Witness community, which was so oppressive, and this is what you have to be, then I was quickly in my brain, I got into the gay culture, and I was like, oh, well, this is what it means. And I need to be out every night drinking, and I've got to wear all that, you know, and I've got to have this car, and these are the people I'm supposed to hang with. And and I kind of got into that. And then there was a point too where I was like, what the fuck? This also doesn't feel authentic to me. Beautiful, a lot of fun, but it also wasn't fully resonating with me. And then when you look where the examples that we have in our media and television and movies that says, hey, there is a whole spectrum of human beings in our community that have far different perspectives. And I think we all individually desperately just want to be individually seen and express. But again, like you said, in that the micro, we're still up against those pieces of feeling othered and making others feel othered within our community.
I mean, it's such a realization when we in our community honor and recognize our own gifts and what we bring into this world, right? How much we add value. And if we can see, you and I both know, if we can see our own value, if we can feel and know that we are worthy. And I know this gets thrown out a lot, even in the therapeutic world after being a therapist for 25 years. And I'm sure you've heard it a lot in your coaching world. You know, you're enough, you're worthy. But this is a constant issue that our society has taught us. But especially in a marginalized community like the LGBTQ plus, if we can notice each other's gifts and we can feel secure in ourselves, we notice we allow other people to feel secure in our own culture, in our own subculture of the LGBTQ plus, community. So then trans people aren't discriminated against from within our community. Non-binary people aren't othered in our community. And I get what you're saying about like, you enter and you're like, oh, I'm coming out and now I'm going to be, for me, it's like, okay, I'm a lesbian. Okay, this is what lesbians look like. This is what they do. This is how you're supposed to act. And if you don't, then you're not in. I mean, it's still in the subcultures that we experience.
Yes.
And it wasn't that long ago, I was feeling like, what is this about? Like, I feel like I'm not in this thing. And I was like, oh, hello. Hello there. And so it's really
garden variety worthiness. That's what I call that. When you suddenly realize you're like, oh, that's my own worthiness thing coming up again.
Yeah. But it's when we can do that for our community is when we're going to really experience this growth. And, when we chatted before and even in the introduction, it's really about us helping people in the corporate world too, who are LGBTQ plus, and obviously other people in leadership to understand. But it's really, how do we help you, the audience, say, no, I'm coming to my life in this way every time. And maybe what are some of the things you see that are the most troubling in the corporate world right now for LGBTQ plus community?
I think what I have noticed is, and having been in the corporate world myself, where I was in charge of like DE&I, strategies, and I think DE&I is extremely important. However, just like anything, there is an evolution. We're not still using the first iPhone. Right? We're allowing things to evolve. And recently I was working with this small company that was very interested in, they knew that they wanted to be better. The CEO really deeply actually cared about being inclusive for the LGBTQ community. And as we were looking at it, they had appointed, their employee resource group. Why I think this is a core example that we see in the corporate world is ultimately, I think DE&I at this point has made everybody feel othered.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And that is a hard thing to say to communities that have been marginalized for so long in the corporate world. But when you talk to these individuals, and when I talk to the employees individually, they don't care. We don't care so much about DE&I. Like, but the queer employees that I talk to, they're like, I feel safe at work. Like, I come to work, I've never not felt safe. They're like, and included, I have my life. But their biggest point was, it was not the feeling of inclusivity wasn't there, because they're like, none of the leadership has gay friends. They don't go to the pride things. They're not really in here hanging out with other people. And I think that is the thing when we actually get to sit across from somebody one-on-one, no matter what their belief structures are, their culture, or any of that, and we get down to the human element, we can see everybody's innate worthiness, as you talked about. That's what I think is happening in the corporate world is, okay, now we need DE&I. You have all these voices saying we need it. It is good work. However, how do we evolve this to where people don't feel othered and people are starting to understand just how to have a human connection to maybe, I don't understand your perspective. There's 8 billion of us on this planet. Not one of us is living the same life. Not one of us.
It kind of reminds me of that show Undercover Boss, where the boss goes in and they're undercover and they finally meet with the people that are like doing the work, and they realize that these people are human. And I think this has been something that's been hard for me to always communicate in my work, because I have been chastised for it or whatever. And I want to recognize that the marginalized communities. But I also wonder if we just saw each other as humans with hearts and souls and love and pain and suffering and all the things, and we connected. I mean, could that be the larger answer? Could it be the easier answer?
Yeah. I think, look, I always like to find the easy way out. I don't want to do things that are hard. If there's an easier way, I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how my brain works. But I think to your point, what is difficult, and I even in my own life felt this for some time because I was so mad and angry about being raised in that cult and so withheld from the things that I wanted and the other things that happened to me
Mm-hmm.
while in that for a long time I was carrying that with me, and I didn't realize that I was carrying it as a victim piece, but it would when I would use it or tell people, they'd be like, "Oh my goodness, like I'm so sad for you," and all that. I'd be like, "I know, it's so fucked up," and it would just feed into that story.
Yeah.
And then one day I realized, like, I had this epiphany when there was this question of it, and you've probably heard this. Many of you listening probably have heard this. Is instead of looking at our lives happening to us, look at our lives happening for us. And when I was realizing, like, the beauty of where I have come and the empathy and the understanding and compassion I have for humans, is because I sat and I observed and constantly watched and constantly felt other. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's where the beauty in so many people who are in um, marginalized communities bring a strength that is just
Mm-hmm.
incredible of understanding compassion because we have we have experienced that part. But when I changed my story and I started to look at it like, what were all these experiences and what did they teach me, that story totally shifted. And I
Mm-hmm.
came into a place of being responsible. And it was like, oh man, look at all of the stuff that I have learned and who that has made me right now. So I think to your point, when especially in the work that I do in corporations, like total well-being of an employee is like not discussed about.
Mm-hmm.
It's, we need to meet these things. It's very, how do we motivate? How do we, command and control? Some of that is shifting in leadership over time. We are definitely seeing a
Mm-hmm.
shift, but the fact that we have removed ourselves from the nature of where we even live, that we are part
Mm-hmm.
of this natural cycle. And then we remove the human side and say, leave work, leave home at home and work at work. That doesn't happen.
No, it
Like,
doesn't.
come on, people.
It's never
Like, this,
happened.
you're dumb as fuck if you think it does. Never.
Yep. Yep.
So I think that it's not just in the DE&I, but it's the whole focus on um, profit over people. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against profit. I'm not against the abundance that there is in this world.
Right.
But I think if we could help people understand, like, you are really powerful,
Mm-hmm.
switch the story.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yes to all of that. And I don't know if I had told you this, but I worked in corporate America for a really long time. And for a long time people told me not to say the company I worked for, but I just say it anyway. So I worked really hard to get a job at Franklin Templeton Investments. I sat in that office my graduating senior year from college, and I was like, I'm going to stay here till there's a no-show because this is what I'm supposed to be doing and told to be doing. And there was a lot of experiences within that job that taught me a lot, but the one thing that I couldn't ever get over is the profit over people. I couldn't ever get over that it didn't make a lot of common sense, the moves that they were making, right? Because it really wasn't about the people, it was about the company. And they're quite progressive in their LGBTQ plus stuff now, and that's all great. And back then, it wasn't as much, but I was let go from that job because literally being told I'm too sensitive to work here. Like, you're too sensitive to work here. And that it wasn't even about being gay, right? It was about being sensitive, and how people in that corporate company, even colleagues, didn't understand my sensitivity, right? And it ultimately taught me that I was in the wrong place, which it all works out for the good. But it does, although we progressed, I still think we haven't progressed enough. Like, about honoring the human person, and where can this person actually fit into the company? What can we use this strength for? And instead of being like, well, okay, well, there you go. And I was like, okay, fine. Well, fuck it. I'm just going to go use this sensitivity as a superpower, which is what I get to do now. So again, ultimately, it was obviously all meant to be. But even when I see the people that I help in corporate America, it's still, they feel othered. And it's not always necessarily just LGBTQ plus people, women feel that way too. But it's like, wow, what is keeping us from this growth? And it really is, I think, helping people realize, like you're saying, how powerful they are, and that you do have a choice, and what happens when we step into that.
Yes. And like you said, everything is a gift, but isn't it crazy that our emotions, your emotion, like, is what trips people up? Emotions scare people, like scare companies. And yet we are emotional beings. It's actually our best communication with ourselves. And, we talk about empathetic leaders, people that are compassionate, generative leaders, intuitive leaders, where you utilize feeling and emotion. But I think that that's probably also like I heard this. So I was having a conversation with my friend, and she is brilliant, but we were talking about corporate America and the work that I do. She's my astrologer. And
I love it.
We were talking about the colonization of, the impacts of colonization. And she said, she's like, what is probably even the biggest one? Beyond all of that is the colonization of our imagination and our mind and our heart. And I just feel into that so much, that there's so much noise out there that is keeping us distracted from our intuition and our own knowing of like what our emotions tell us. Because to your point, when I worked for a large bank, BBVA, they were very great in many ways, and they gave me a great career. But there was one leader, and he would always, I don't know what I did to piss him off. I had no clue. Probably because he was a good Christian. Whatever, I don't care. But I would always get told, like, you're too passionate. You're too passionate. And I'm like, I am saying the same shit as these other guys are. Even smarter, wittier. Like Whittier, it's a lot more fun. Like, my team loves me. We're outperforming everybody else. And yet I'm too passionate. And that goes back to your thing about radical. I think all of us are wanting to find our own path, but it's like in this herd mentality that has happened. It's like, oh no, I can't break out, because what will happen?
Yeah.
What, like, it's like our whole world would shatter. And I think, to me, like, that's why queer people, like, we've already taken a big step. Let's keep going, folks. Because like, we've already broken out of so many of those cultural programmings.
Well, and it's so funny. It's like, you're too passionate, and then you tone it down, and then they're like, but what happened to you? You're not the same person as you used to be. And it's this kind of like talking out both sides of their mouth. And I'm sure you know this. I know this. I think people out there that are listening will know this, is that you did nothing to that person. I mean, the more awareness we have about that is a reflection of himself internally, and how they try and still blame I mean, let's just talk just specifically about the LGBTQ plus community. They try and blame us for having an agenda. They try and blame us for all these things. I recently had an episode with a wonderful transgender woman who I love dearly, who is just an amazing person. But I've not ever gotten so much hate comments about leaving children alone. And like all this, it's like, that's a reflection of your fear. That doesn't have anything to do with this woman. She hasn't done anything wrong. She is being herself. And that you should probably look in your own church. You should probably look in your own school. You should probably be looking in these other places where heterosexual people are rampantly engaged in child abuse. Right? So, I mean, those are the issues that I'm like, I don't have any tolerance for anymore. Like, no, we're not doing that.
I agree. I mean, I think what it comes down to is that not that there's a they that have an agenda necessarily, but I think that when people look at that we have ownership over people, that we, even our own children, or that we have it the right way, and that is what is causing these divisions. And the divisions are loudly spoken through the news, through social media, through movies. The things that we're consuming continue to do such a phenomenal job of keeping us separate. Yep. And in the queer community, when you look at that, so I was on a podcast in this very, very cisgender, straight leaning, like military mental health stuff. I'm on, which is going to be a great episode. But he asked a question. He's like, well, what do you think about the drag queens in schools, and the transgender issues? Like, why are we pushing this? And I said, we're not. I don't know many gay people out there that are like, hey, look, we're trying to convert your kid. I don't know one gay person that's actually trying to be like, oh yeah, you're gay. No, we're saying like, hey, we've lived this experience, and kids to have an alternative perspective, that there's other options. Great. This may go way off left, field, so you can bring me back. But I think that if we truly understood what was happening here in this experience, this human experience, that we're all individual souls that have chosen to grow and to experience something, and that everybody has a right to go on their own path because everybody has a path, even your child, that to give them the space to be able to explore. Oh, men should wear dresses. That pink is not, that's a girl's color. Bitch, do your history, because pink was only worn by men. Men actually wore dresses and wore high heels. They were invented for men first. Women weren't allowed to wear pink because it was too costly. So men got to wear it. This all of these beliefs that we have been told for centuries are bullshit. But you got to figure that out yourself. And I think that that's, to me, radical. When you start to question, what are my beliefs and why are they there? Whether you are far on the right side, evangelical, to extreme on the left, understanding how those perceptions and those beliefs came about are so powerful.
Yep.
Totally agree. I mean, that's when, in the online world, you hear like awareness or, all those things. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's like, and having that, those moments that you're giving yourself to say, what does it really mean for me? And you're not, like you're saying, we're not being distracted. We're not being involved in all of the things that honestly we can't control. People ask me, well, you don't listen to the news, you don't do that stuff. How are you going to know what's going on? I was like, oh, believe me, I know what's going on just intuitively. I don't need to add that stuff into the chaos, right? Because
Yes.
I want to stay focused on how I want to interact in my life in this world. And, I have a mission on this planet until the day that I die. And, and it feels so freeing to know what that is. But it's not necessarily like a job or anything, but it's a way of interacting. That's my mission, right?
Being.
Yep.
Being how you are being.
Yep.
You're a
Absolutely.
human that is being, that is experiencing. And so I love that, because when you start to tap into it, again, these boxes, I think about this example of like, and work with people to like draw out like their belief, like
Hmm.
identities, and draw it in boxes, or these beliefs that they're looking at. Like, okay, do you believe this? Great. Draw a box, and you start to look at the amount of boxes that you have put yourself into, and you think everybody else has done it. You've actually done it, because
Hmm.
you're taking on that belief.
Hmm.
And when you can come to a place of understanding, like, at least for me, of I want to experience myself grow and learn and show
Hmm.
love and show compassion. I want to acknowledge that I think about things differently, and I want to authentically speak them, and my intention is from a great place.
Hmm.
But I'm also not going to toe the line.
Hmm.
I'm not going to fight the same way other people think you need to fight.
Yep.
I'm going to none of that, because if it doesn't feel good to me, I don't do it. I learned that. Like, doesn't feel good, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry, no. I'm not, nope, not into it. And when you start to even take those stances of just like, nope, I don't want to do it, or I'm not going to be there, or that doesn't work with me.
Hmm.
Even when people want to have a conversation, and they'll start to go down the road of like, a lot of complaining, or they want to talk about the news. I'm like, that's not something that I want to spend or give my energy to. So, is there something else you want to talk about? No? Okay, bye. And, people are like, what? But I think it would, like, imagine, Rachel, if we actually looked at our inner as in, like, we have an energy bank, and it's like, where am I giving my energy? And so, like, to your point, why would I give my energy to the news
Hmm.
when that is all past and noise and rhetoric and who knows what? And it's
Well,
it's already all happened. So
yeah.
nothing you can do about it.
Well, in so much fear. I have a friend who moved here from South Africa, and she's like, your country is constantly bombarding people here with just constant fear, constant everything. I was like, yes, yes, that's what that's what happens here, because it's like we have to hype it up so much, or make it such a big deal. It's this may be contrary to, may not do any good for me, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's the same thing as the therapeutic model. I mean, the medical model does make people say that you have to be so sick in order to get these services, or you have to continue to be sick in order to continue to get the services you actually need. But you have to be on these big, huge ranges of, I'm going to commit suicide and then we'll help you, instead of doing it beforehand and letting people say, like, this is the issue I'm having, I just need to see someone for this issue. It doesn't have to be so catastrophic all the time, like it's kind of made out to be.
Yeah. Well, and a quick on that piece, where I think too, in this country, the it is where I don't think a lot of those systems really want people to heal, because it continues to make money. And
Well,
I mean, it's
yes.
so obvious. I mean, it's like, hello, like,
Hmm.
it's in the veil is very thin when you start to realize that there's something else going on, and I think
Hmm.
people are. I heard this speaker, and she interviewed a ton of immigrants, that and in immigration camps that were, and refugee camps.
Hmm.
And one of the time because they had a therapist and like to do mental health stuff. They're taking people in and they didn't want to talk. Like they're like, not go in the room. And finally, somebody said to her, like, why do you take them in a room, shut them in there, and make them talk about these things? They're like, in our village, what we do is we take that person, we put them in the middle of a circle, the community comes out, and we beat the drum. We
Mm.
beat the drum. And we sit there with that person and hold them while they work through whatever they're seeing. And they're
Mm.
not having to do it on their own. And I think that that is also part of like what all of us just want is to be seen. We have to see
Mhm.
ourselves, but everything is, there's so many good things that we can leverage in this
Mhm.
world.
Yep.
But to your point, it is where we want to put our focus. And I think that a lot of what we're up against, especially in the queer community, is that our focus is so easily on gay rights or these transgender laws that are being passed. And it's fight, fight, fight. It's like we need to fight.
Mhm.
But if you really look at Queer Money, guys over at Queer Money Podcast, they did a great financial study about the queer finances.
Mm.
And they and somebody else did as well and looked at how all these funds are being funneled through evangelical churches into these funds that are able to politically donate.
Mm.
And like it's all built in. We can do the same thing. We
Mhm.
can't get our shit together. And I think we can, but they have
Mhm.
organized under these um, financial groups, and they're
Yep.
raising 10 to 12 million, I think, of a month. Anyways, why I say like things like this is the kind of stuff that I think if we were aware,
Mm.
and it's like, well, don't get mad. Let's just play the game. We always play things better.
Yeah.
Anyways, like we're really fucking good and creative and fun and smart and
Mhm.
witty. We do good. I think we could tear this world up in a beautiful way that allows everybody
Absolutely.
to feel more seen.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like you and I can go on talking for hours,
Yeah,
about all of the
that's a
things.
problem.
Yeah. Well, it's a good problem for us
Yeah.
to have.
Yes.
So, just as we're wrapping up, so there's someone listening to this podcast who, um, let's just say, is in the corporate world and they're part of the LGBTQ plus community. Give me a really um, just brief thing that you would, and they're struggling. What is one thing that they can do right now to return back to themselves or to connect? I guess maybe that's a
Um,
better word.
to connect.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. It, to me, I think the biggest piece I would recommend to anybody that was feeling off is to take a few moments and journal. And I know
Mm-hmm.
people are like that's what I can think about. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is what's coming to me right now is um, ask yourself some questions of why you're feeling this way. Sit with it. Don't beat yourself up. But
Mm-hmm.
like, why am I feeling? Why am I feeling negative? Or why I'm feeling angry? Why am I feeling scared? Or why I'm feeling stuck?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of just sit in those questions and see what comes up, and start to go into the deeper why. I
Mm-hmm.
think that if it's I'm feeling stuck, well, why am I feeling stuck? Mm, maybe whatever the is, I'm not getting promoted or not
Mm-hmm.
being seen
Mm-hmm.
or I feel othered. Okay, why do I feel
Mm-hmm.
othered? Why am I, holding myself back? I think it probably the most basic is asking those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other piece that I would say is there are incredible queer people in our communities that love to mentor
Mm-hmm.
and have gotten to different points. Get on LinkedIn, get involved with the business community that's there, or there's so many different resources. But I guarantee you'll find people who have gone through whatever you are and will give you a perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's really, I think, you asked for brief. I struggle with brief. Is ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And how would I really want to feel?
Yeah.
And maybe just dig in. I think you'll start to uncover.
Well, yeah, you will. And you'll feel resistance. You'll be like, oh, journaling is not for me. That may be a sign of resistance, right? You can talk it on your phone. There's all different kinds of ways to journal. So I'm with you on that. And then too, asking yourself, even adding in between the why and the how, is where does this come from? Because oftentimes the origin is not you. And that's how we can begin to free ourselves, right? So I love that suggestion. I think it's simple. And I think that if someone is really struggling to connect with themselves and see their own worthiness, having a mentor to help you through that and to journal is absolutely a great place to start. So thanks so much for that. All right. So before I end the podcast, just let everyone know where they can find you.
Right. Yeah. Most of my content and what I focus on is on LinkedIn. So that's probably one of the easiest ways. It's just Paul S. Honeycutt.
Okay.
Or on Instagram at The Curious Queer. Those are the easy ways. You'll be able to, link into a website or however else you want to connect from that standpoint.
Awesome.
I like it easy. Go to LinkedIn.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about Paul and his work, please look him up. If you have any feedback about today's episode, if you've been inspired or empowered to start connecting to yourself even more than maybe you are already and really interacting in this world exactly the way that you want to, I would encourage you to reach out to me. I'll forward any messages to Paul. This is such a beautiful conversation and a way that we can all interact in our own LGBTQ plus community. All right, my friends. So I'm going to end this episode here like I end every single episode. Please make sure to stay true to yourself, be kind to others, and always, always, always honor the wise one that is within you. I will see you all on the next road to radical visibility. Until then, bye. Hold up, don't go yet. If this episode inspired you to be 100% yourself, 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed, even just that little bit more, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. I'm here, and I know you are too, to make a positive impact in the world. So don't forget to share the love. And if you were left wanting more of this type of kick-ass content, then don't forget to click the like and subscribe button. Until next time, make sure to stay true and be you. Until then, bye.